Every stone, every field in Palestine holds a memory. And now, science confirms what families have always known. Palestinians are the living descendants of the first civilizations. This is more than history. It's identity, survival, and unbroken roots. For 5,000 years, a land has stood at the crossroads of empires, civilizations, and faiths. It is a land where ancient cities rose from the dust, where kings ruled, prophets spoke, and armies marched. Today, it is called Palestine. But long before modern borders and battles, its people were already there, living, farming, building, dreaming. Recent breakthroughs in ancient DNA reveal a remarkable truth. The Palestinians of today are deeply connected to the Canaanites and early inhabitants of this land. Through conquest, empire, and change, the people endured. Their roots run deeper than the sands of time. This is the 5,000-year genetic history of Palestine, a story of continuity, resilience, and belonging. Before the pyramids rose, before the great empires of history marched across the world, there was already life thriving in Palestine. Here, on the eastern shores of the Mediterranean, humans built some of the first known cities of our world. At Jericho, stone towers stood against the sky nearly 10,000 years ago, built by hands that shaped the dawn of civilization itself. By 3000 BCE, a vibrant world of farmers, merchants, and artisans flourished across the land. They traded with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and distant islands across the sea. They built temples to their gods, raised walls around their cities, and tilled the fertile valleys of this ancient land. These people spoke early Semitic languages, ancestors of Hebrew and Arabic, and lived in a world alive with culture, myth, and ambition. Long before the Bible, long before Rome, this land was already old. And in the bones of these early people, in the very strands of their DNA, a story was written. A story that continues in the Palestinians of today. Around 3000 BCE, the people of Palestine became known to history as the Canaanites. They were not a single tribe or nation, but a tapestry of city-states and villages, each with its own customs, gods, and kings. They worshipped under the open sky, offering prayers to deities like El, Baal, and Asherah, gods of the storm, the sea, the harvest. Their cities, like Hazor, Megiddo, and Gaza, were bustling centers of trade, art, and innovation. Canaanite merchants sailed the Mediterranean to Cyprus and Crete, carrying goods and ideas back to their stone-built homes. Their artisans crafted pottery adorned with intricate designs, jewelry of gold and silver, and tools whose patterns would echo across millennia. Recent studies of ancient DNA extracted from human remains buried in Canaanite cities reveal an extraordinary truth. The genetic signature of the Canaanites still runs strong in the veins of the Palestinians today. Despite the wars, the migrations, the rise and fall of empires, the core bloodline of this land remained. The Canaanites are not just ancient history. They are living history, carried forward generation after generation in the people of Palestine. In the last decade, breakthroughs in ancient DNA analysis have opened a new window into the past. For the first time, scientists were able to extract genetic material from skeletons buried in Canaanite cities thousands of years ago. In 2017, a landmark study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics analyzed the genomes of 5 individuals from Sidon, an ancient Canaanite city. The results were stunning. The ancient Canaanites were not wiped out or replaced by later invaders as once thought. Instead, they largely survived, mixing slightly with neighboring populations over time, but preserving their genetic core. The study found that a substantial portion of the ancestry of modern Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, and some Jewish groups can be traced back to these Bronze Age Canaanites. Another major 2020 study, published in Cell, reinforced these findings. By analyzing over 100 ancient genomes from sites across the region, they confirmed that today's Palestinian population, along with other Levantine groups, shows strong genetic continuity with the Bronze Age peoples of the region. This ancient DNA shows that the people of historical Palestine were never erased. Empires came and went. Egyptians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans. But the heart of the population endured, adapting, surviving, and passing their lineage down through the ages. In every Palestinian family today, in every village and city, the story of ancient Canaan still lives, not only in culture and memory, but deep within their very DNA. The world of the Canaanites would not stand untouched forever. Around 1200 BCE, a great collapse shook the ancient world. Empires fell, cities burned, and new peoples surged across the land. Among them were the Egyptians, fighting to hold their grip over Canaan. The mysterious sea peoples, warriors from across the Mediterranean, raided the coasts. And from within, a new identity began to emerge. the early Israelites, rising from the highlands of Canaan itself. The Israelites shared cultural and linguistic roots with the Canaanites, lived in Canaanite lands, and drew from Canaanite traditions. Their story would become the foundation of future faiths and civilizations. But culturally and genetically, they remained connected to the broader population of the land. Through centuries of Egyptian rule, through the rise of powerful kingdoms like Israel and Judah, the core population of Palestine stayed rooted in place. Ancient DNA studies reveal only gradual genetic change during this turbulent age. Instead of replacement, there was continuity, a resilient people adapting to new ideas, new faiths, and new rulers, but never abandoning their homeland. By 500 BCE, the world around them had changed dramatically. Assyria and Babylon had risen and fallen, but the descendants of the Canaanites, now speaking Hebrew, Aramaic, and other Semitic tongues, still tilled the same soil, buried their dead in the same earth, and carried forward the same ancient bloodlines that began millennia before. The Philistines, who came from the Sea Peoples, also left genetic traces, mainly along the coastal areas. But their impact on the overall Palestinian gene pool was relatively small compared to the dominant Canaanite continuity that persisted throughout the land. By the 5th century BCE, new powers had come to dominate Palestine. The armies of Persia swept across the Near East, bringing new rulers but leaving the fabric of local life mostly intact. When Alexander the Great conquered the region in the 4th century BCE, Greek language and culture flooded the cities. Temples, theaters, and marketplaces rose in the Hellenistic style. Yet beneath these changes, the old bloodlines endured. The farmers in the hills, the fishermen along the coast, the merchants along the caravan routes. They were the descendants of Canaanites and early Israelites, now adapting once again to a changing world. They learned new languages, adopted new customs, but maintained their deep connection to the land. Then came Rome. By 63 BCE, Palestine became a province of the Roman Empire. The great cities, Jerusalem, Caesarea, Sebaste, gleamed with Roman roads, aqueducts, and amphitheaters. It was during Roman rule that Christianity was born in Palestine, a new faith that would soon spread across the world. Still, DNA studies reveal that the people living through these transformations remained largely the same. There were no mass population replacements, only layers of cultural influence and gradual genetic mixing. The Roman and Byzantine eras brought architectural marvels and religious transformations, but the ancestral bloodlines continued, unbroken. When the Roman Empire split and Byzantium rose, Christianity became the official religion of the land. Churches replaced temples, Latin and Greek echoed in the courts. Yet the everyday people, from farmers to artisans, continued the life patterns set down thousands of years before. They spoke new languages, prayed to new gods, built new kinds of cities, but their DNA carried forward the story of ancient Canaan. From the Persian Wars to the rise of Christianity, the land of Palestine stood at the center of empires. But at its heart, the people endured, living, working, and passing their lineage down from generation to generation. Beneath every marble column and every church dome, the same ancient blood flowed. In the 7th century, a new chapter unfolded over the hills and valleys of Palestine. The armies of Islam swept out from the Arabian Peninsula, bringing a new faith and a new language to the ancient lands of the Levant. Arabic replaced Aramaic and Greek in the streets and markets. The call to prayer echoed across villages where once temples and churches had stood. But in the blood of the people, the changes were much more subtle than the cultural transformation suggests. Ancient DNA studies show that the Arab-Muslim conquest brought significant cultural changes, but not mass migration or population replacement. The core population, the descendants of Canaanites, Israelites, and early Christians, remained rooted in their homeland. Over time, most of the people of Palestine embraced the new faith of Islam. They adopted Arabic as their mother tongue, creating a distinctive Palestinian dialect that carries echoes of earlier languages. But in their faces, in their traditions, in their genetic memory, they carried forward the ancient story of the land. Genetic evidence shows a measured Arabian genetic contribution during this period, layered onto a foundation that had already been in place for thousands of years. The Arabization of Palestine was primarily a cultural and religious transformation, not a wholesale replacement of people. Through this transformation, the ancient people of Palestine survived yet another era of change. From Canaanite worshippers of Baal, to Israelites, to early Christians, to Muslim Palestinians. The thread of ancestry stretched unbroken across the centuries. A new chapter had begun, but the story was still the same. A people deeply rooted in their land, adapting, enduring, and carrying the blood of their ancestors into a new age. In the 11th century, the world once again turned its gaze upon Palestine. The Crusaders, warriors from Europe, crossed land and sea to claim the Holy Land for Christendom. For nearly 2 centuries, they built castles, fought battles, and ruled over parts of Palestine. The stone fortresses of the Crusaders still stand today, silent witnesses to this turbulent era. Yet even during the Crusader period, the local population remained overwhelmingly indigenous. Ancient DNA shows only a small European genetic footprint left behind, a few drops in the deep river of native ancestry. When the Crusades ended, new rulers rose. The Mamluks brought their military prowess and architectural vision, building markets and mosques that still define many Palestinian cities. Then came the Ottomans, bringing Palestine into the vast web of the Islamic world. For 400 years, from the 1500s to the dawn of the 20th century, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. Trade routes crisscrossed the region. Villages and towns grew along ancient foundations. Turkish, Kurdish, and Balkan settlers arrived in small numbers, adding threads to the tapestry. But again, the core of the population remained the same, deeply rooted, enduring through empire after empire. Genetic studies show that these centuries of foreign rule brought only minor admixture. The bloodline of the people stayed largely untouched, just as it had through the earlier Persian, Greek, and Roman centuries. Palestinian villages and families kept their traditions alive, farming the same lands, speaking evolving dialects of Arabic, carrying forward customs that reached back thousands of years. Through crusades, through sultans and emperors, through wars and famines, the people of Palestine remained. They adapted, they survived, and they continued to live on the land their ancestors had farmed since the days of Jericho and Hazor. Beneath every Crusader fortress and Ottoman minaret, the old blood still flowed, the ancient story still whispered. Today, the hills and valleys of Palestine still echo with the footsteps of the past. In the olive groves that have stood for centuries, the stone terraces built by countless generations, the ancient wells and winding streets, the memory of millennia lives on. But it is not just memory. It is written deep within the people themselves. Modern DNA studies have confirmed what history and tradition have long suggested. The Palestinians of today are the direct descendants of the ancient peoples who lived in this land for 5,000 years. Scientific research shows that a significant majority of Palestinian genetic ancestry comes from the Bronze Age inhabitants of the southern Levant, the Canaanites, the early Israelites, the ancient farmers and city builders who shaped this land. Through every conquest, through every empire, through every migration, the core population remained, adapting, enduring, surviving. Palestinians carry in their veins the genetic legacy of Jericho, Hazor, Megiddo, and Jerusalem. Their DNA is the DNA of the first cities, the first traders, the first builders of civilization along the eastern shores of the Mediterranean. It is a lineage that has persisted through time, influenced but never erased by the rise and fall of empires. The language changed from Canaanite to Aramaic to Greek to Arabic. The faiths evolved from ancient gods to monotheism in various forms. The rulers came and went, each leaving their mark. But the people remained, rooted like the ancient olive trees that still dot the hills of Palestine, trees that have witnessed centuries pass beneath their silvery leaves. This is not just a story of history. It is a story of survival, of deep belonging to the land, of a people whose ancestry reaches back to the very beginnings of civilization itself. When you look into the eyes of a Palestinian farmer tending his olives, a teacher sharing stories with her students, a child playing in the streets of Ramallah, Nablus, Gaza, or Hebron, you are seeing the living descendants of the first builders of this land. The story of Palestine is not just ancient history. It is living history, carried in every heartbeat, every name, every memory, and every cell. It is a story written in stone and soil, and in blood and bone. For 5,000 years, the people of Palestine have endured, their roots running deep into the ancient soil. Empires rose and fell around them. Conquerors marched across their fields. New languages and faiths swept through their villages. But through it all, they remained, adapting, surviving, preserving the unbroken chain that links today's Palestinians with the first dawn of civilization in this ancient land. Every olive grove, every stone house, every ancient well tells this story. But the greatest testament to this continuity isn't found in ruins or artifacts. It's found in the faces of the people themselves, the living embodiment of 5 millennia of Palestinian history.